Guys, Wyatt here, and what we're going to be going through today is understanding the four major types of different variables that there are in Java. I know when I first started out, I kind of got confused with why there were so many and the differences between them. So let's get started today. So we're going to have the four types of variables. You're going to have your class variable, you're going to have your instance variables, you're going to have reference variables, and then you're going to have your primitive variables. All right. Let's get them spelled right for you real quick, just so that way they're looking nice. And so to get started, your class variables are going to be the variables that are consistent throughout the entire class and do not change. Consistent throughout. These variables are often going to be denoted by the word static. So for example, you could have something like public static int x. And that means for the entire restaurant class that we have created, this variable is going to remain the same the entire time. Now that's going to be different than our instance variables, for example, because our instance variables we're going to allow to change. So your instance variables are going to change depending on how they're utilized. So they can be different depending on how they're called from the method. Depending on how method utilizes them. All right. So, for example, if we have a variable called int rating. So here in a second, we'll get a rating going, and we'll show you how that rating can differ based on how it's utilized. All right. Your reference variables are going to be variables that refer to different object types, in particular, usually object types that you create. So they're not going to be your primitive variables, which are going to be your int, double, char, float. Your reference variables are going to refer to the definition I think the book gives you is, it says refers to an instance of a class object. All right. And say there's already a constructor going on in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, you'd say something along the lines of restaurant referring to the class or referring to the object type. Restaurant, name, give it a name like Krusty Krab equals a new type of restaurant object, just like this. All right. So here, Krusty Krab would be your reference. It's reference object, a reference variable of type restaurant. All right. And then you can see how you can have a couple different types. So you could have in the same class, you could have the chum bucket. Equals restaurant. All right. And your primitive variables are going to be your variables that are based on the variables that are based on methods that are or objects that are predefined in Java. So from the book, it says directly stores the data for that variable type, and then like double, int, char, and so these are going to be like, this could again, primitive variable, your int rating right here could be a primitive variable. So you could just stick with that, or you could give another example. But let's say, show you how this instant variable could be different for different inputs. So let's say you had a method called set rating, and it takes a user rating, all right? And what it would output would be something along the lines of your rating is equal to whatever your user rating is. And what you can see here is that you could have, for example, your Krusty Krab class, or your Krusty Krab reference variable. You could call the set rating method and set it to a rating of 100. So this instance of rating, it's now going to be set to 100. But then you could have on ChumBucket dot set rating, you could say they get like a 24 or something on a good day. All right. So that's briefly a quick little insight on understanding the 4 major types of variables that there are in Java. Hope you guys got a little bit better understanding of it today. If there are any questions that you have, leave them in the comments beneath, and make sure to share this video with your cats and dogs.